Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth. Hi, I'm Abbie, and welcome to this episode of Oxford from the Inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we are joined by Chloe and Sophie. Would you girls like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Chloe and I do geography at St. Peter's.
I'm Sophie. I'm also a second year geographer at St. Peter's.
Brilliant. Welcome, girls. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And today we'll be talking about how to write a personal statement for geography. So I might just start off with a basic question. So I'll aim this at you, at Chloe, first. So what is studying geography at Oxford like, and do you enjoy your degree?
Yes, I love my degree. It's very good. I think with this course, it's very varied. So it's not geography is broad anyway, but the degree, especially in first year, it makes you do both human and physical, and you just cover so much, and it's really interesting. And if you find something really interesting, you can just go deeper into that bit. So I really love it.
Yeah, I would say geography is definitely a subject for those who would potentially get bored easily, just because it is so broad. If you, for example, I loved all three of my A levels, so I'm like, oh, I don't know what to choose for a degree, but geography is a good bet if you want something that's going to be very broad and cover a lot of topics.
Yeah, I think because you always talk about how almost geography is the bridge between the sciences and the humanities. So I feel like if you can't really pick between the sciences or humanities, geography is probably a good way to go. Perfect, yeah. So Sophie, then, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, super duper easy, and then 10 being really, really difficult, how tough would you say applications for geography are, and why would you say that?
I would say, see, for mine and Chloe's year, for some random freak of nature, we didn't get an application test. So normally, all the years before us had to do a test, and all the years after us had to do a test. But for some reason, our year didn't have to do a test.
Thing what the test was. So we were just the interim year where they just didn't have it prepared. So and then we didn't.
Yeah. So for that reason, I would say application was maybe 6 out of 10, 5 or 6 out of 10, just because it was just your personal statement, getting good predicted grades, and then getting good A-level grades, and then the interview, obviously. So it wasn't that much unknown because we didn't have to do that.
The interview was quite not chilled because it's still a bit stressful, but I mean you had one human and you had one physical, but they were just, you weren't expected to have specific prior knowledge. They just want to see how you react to a diagram or a certain question, and you can mess up a little bit in them and it's still fine. They just want to see if you're how you learn and how you use what knowledge you have and apply it and all that sort of stuff. So I think the interviews are quite good.
Yeah, I mean, I had one massive horror story in my interview. My tutor asked me to talk about some socio-economic factors of a country in the southern hemisphere, and then bear in mind I was sat next to a massive world
it's
map,
a map the size of the wall,
and I started talking about Hong Kong, and then my tutor was like, Sophie, that is in the northern hemisphere. And I was like, and I was like, oh, I haven't gotten in, but luckily I did. So
well, there we go. I mean, that's a clear example of how you can easily make mistakes in interviews and still get a place. I mean, my entire first interview was a write-off. It was awful. So yeah, don't worry, it's chill. So I feel like we may as well get into the bulk of it. So I don't know, Sophie, how did you then go about writing your personal statement? Was there a specific sort of structure that you adopted?
Yeah, because I'd always got told, so for my school, there's only 2 of us who applied to Oxbridge, and we were always told, oh, yours has to be a completely different style to how everyone else is writing it, try and make it like an academic essay, kind of 80% of it has to be academics, then the last 20% can be extracurriculars that you do. And I was like, oh, okay, kind of thrown in the deep end. They didn't give me any examples, so I was like, okay, just have to think about this. And I think the most helpful tip that I can think of is, everyone's always like, oh, throw in all these books, then it looks like you've read a bunch. I would say actually try and narrow it down, maybe focus on one book and then really engage with that one. It doesn't have to be a book, it can be an article or journal. Then really engage with it, because I think that's what tutors are looking for. So they're looking for a bit of original thought. So they want you to be like, oh, I agree with this point, but actually I don't agree with this bit because I read this somewhere else, or because in this A level I found this, so that was interesting because it linked to that. And if you try and engage more with one book, I think it actually makes a much better personal statement than if you're like, oh, I read this and then I read this. No, that was good, and then I read this. Because then it doesn't really show that you're engaging with it, because that's what you're going to have to do in essays in the future, is like really engage with the text. So that's basically what I think I did 4 paragraphs or 4 or 5 in my personal statement, and a good 3 were just focusing on this one journal that I'd read.
Yeah, I definitely think that, because anyone can read like a load of books. It doesn't, but I think the thing that will make your personal statement good is actually saying what you learned from it, because it's all well and good just saying you did all this stuff, but what was the benefit of it? What did you learn? What did it teach you? Like, how did it inspire you to read something else, or all that sort of stuff? Like, it's actually saying how you benefited from it that I think makes it better. And with my personal statement, I didn't do any work experience or anything like that. I talked about little things I'd done. So I was on the HE Plus project that Cambridge ran. So I talked about that. And then I did an essay competition. I went to like a taster lecture at a university, just things like that. And just talk about it and and how it interested you.
I would also say, because geography is so broad, there's so many different aspects that you could read about. And because it's so broad, one of the key skills really to be a geographer is to be able to link stuff together. So I'd say if you can, like, so for me, I did philosophy and ethics, geography and chemistry at A level. And though they're quite a random mix, I managed to like mix them all throughout my personal statement, which I think helps, because it showed that I can link like the human side of geography to then like the physical side. Because really, even though like you're allowed to have a preference to like which side you like, you have to do both in the first year. So the tutors kind of want to see that you can deal with both sides.
Yeah, so I did something similar. So my A-levels were chemistry, maths and geography, and a lot of my personal statement links in chemistry to geography. So talking about like the physical side of it, with climate change, seismology, and then going on to like linking that to the social aspects. So I think it's good to cover both human and physical. You can be weighted more to one side, but I think it's really good to actually have both in.
No, I think that's you both mentioned some really good points there. Like Sophie, how you said that it's good to focus on maybe 1 or even just 2 supercurriculars, and to sort of really show like a deep understanding of the topic, because at the end of the day you're going to be focusing down, especially later on in your degree, into one specific topic. So it's good to have that skill at such a young age, even before you get to university. And also you said you both mentioned how you tried to adopt like a broad view of the subject, and I think this also helps, because obviously when you get to first year, they're going to be teaching you the human side of geography, they're going to be teaching you the environmental side, they're going to be teaching the physical side of geography. So you've got to be able to embrace all 3 before you specialize. So I think having a broad engagement with the subject as a whole is more favorable than maybe focusing down. You can focus down, but maybe try and talk about subjects which maybe you aren't as majorly interested in, but it just shows that you're willing to explore them. So Chloe, you mentioned about a bunch of different supercurricular activities you did, about I think you said something about like online courses or something. Anyway, but I was just wondering, could you like maybe mention a few more sort of related to geography?
Yeah, so I think doing like residentials, I don't know how they'd work at the moment with obviously coronavirus, but I'm sure they're doing virtual versions of it. But I went to Sutton Trust Summer School. I did chemistry, but I still worked it into my personal statement because I was like, I'm using that. So definitely doing residentials or summer schools, things like that, because it's outside of your lesson time, so it's showing that you're actually making an effort to get involved with your subject. beyond what you have to do in school or college or whatever. And then, so yeah, I did the 80 Plus programme, which is an outreach project that is run by University of Cambridge. And that was really interesting. So you had to do, it's kind of like a mini EPQ. So you have a question, and then you do like a little research project on it and present it on a poster. So that was really interesting because it allowed you to like literally just pick a topic or anything that you found interesting and let you just do that. And then I also did, I went to a couple of taster lectures at university. So one was at King's College London, but I'm pretty sure like every university does them, especially at the moment because it's like virtual, so it's actually so much easier for them to do it. So definitely got involved with them because again, it's something outside of your lesson and curriculum, and it just shows your interest and that you're willing to learn about it. And then I also did an essay competition. Most universities run these. So mine was at Warwick University, and it was their Global Sustainable Development one. So it wasn't specific to geography, but like it links in. But I definitely think get involved with this because even if you don't like win anything or get an award, like you've still written an essay for a very good competition. And again, it just shows your interest and you put in effort outside of that. You didn't have to do it, but you put in the effort to do it. And then the other things I did that like supercurricular were literally just I read 2 books and that was it.
I think that's the beauty though, and I think everything that you do which you think has some academic substance, you can always link it in. You can find some way to link it into the subject. I think that's a good tip. It's like everything you put in your personal statement, try to link it back to the subject or how it's going to help you with your degree. Because that's what they just want to see, that you really are interested in the subject, that you say geography. And because geography is so broad, it's so easy to link anything in, literally.
I think what's good is if you imagine someone reading your personal statement and literally just asking why at each sentence, and then it really makes you think like, actually, why have I put this in? What is it giving me? How does this make me better? So I think that's a really good tip for trying to see how the tutor might read it.
Yeah, and I think like a good like structure for personal statement is like kind of like the introductory paragraph. You're saying why you like geography, why you want to do it, and then the rest is just like how you've used the past 2 years to show that you like geography and why you like geography and how it's going to help you with your degree. And then it kind of like reinforces the first paragraph of like why you want to study the subject, because like you've done all these things and this is why you love it.
I also think if you can have like a theme, like a general, quite broad theme running through, so just put the paragraphs linked together so it's not like completely separate ideas, there is sort of a flow towards it. But for my structure, I had one thing and I did a paragraph on that thing, but I put them in an order where it's sort of, they fed into each other. And then at the final like conclusion sort of bit, I linked in some extracurriculars because I think it's important to have them in, even like, although obviously not a lot of them, but always link it back to your academic ability and your suitability for study. So if you do any sports, DFE, volunteering, like anything like that, I think you can link in it. It just shows that you're like a more rounded person.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I remember one of my teachers told me, yeah, don't bother putting any extracurriculars, and I was like, no, like, because they want Oxford, they want all-rounded students. They want to show that you're going to do other stuff for the university. Like if you were I was editor of the magazine, I put that in. I did some volunteering, I put that in, even though it didn't directly link. But then again, I did slightly link them back. Like I talked about sustainability in my magazine, so that kind of linked. So you can link everything, but I say definitely do put extracurriculars in.
Even with like transferable skills, they still relate to your study. So like teamwork or communication, things like that, they're still valuable when you're doing your degree because they're just good basic skills to have, and they're demonstrated by extracurriculars.
No, that's fab. Like, and what you guys have just said is like, it's all so crucial and it's so important to highlight to, you know, prospective students who are writing their personal statements. And you also mentioned how it's really good for whatever you've done to always link it back to the skills you've learned and how that will make you good for university. Because I feel like a lot of students, you know, I've read a lot of personal statements over my time and like a lot of students fall into the trap of almost like they're trying to sell their subject to the tutors rather than trying to sell them as a person for the subject. So I think it's really important to be like, I've done this, this, and this, and this makes me, I've got this skill from it, and this makes me really good for university, rather than, in geography there's this, this, and this. That's why geography is amazing. Like, so there's
yeah, that was the big, I remember reading my first draft of my personal statement. I took it to my geography teacher to read it, and I remember her telling me, like, you have to cut out about 90% of this, because I was telling them geography facts, and then my teacher was like, Sophie, you're giving your personal statement to geography professors, like they know this already. Like, don't try and teach them stuff, like, because obviously they know it. All they want to know is about you, really, and why you like geography. They don't want to know about geography because they already know it. Like,
yeah, I think that's what I think a lot of people initially forget that. Well, not forget, but like, I feel like they want to try and prove their knowledge. They want to prove how much reading they've done, but they fall into that trap of almost just telling the tutors what they already know. So try and remember that it's about you. You're trying to sell yourself for the subject, not the subject to the tutors.
Different from other people's is literally talking about you, because no one's done the same things that you have.
Precisely, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like there's quite a crucial point I feel like needs to be raised here. So, Sophie, do geography applicants need to have some form of work experience beforehand?
No, not at all. Like, I remember my school made us do work experience, like, after year 11. So I did mine in, like, a wood, which kind of related to geography, but, like, I think I wrote maybe one sentence on it at the end. Like, it's really not important. And the thing is with geography even is that you don't even have to do geography A level to do geography at university. So, like, they're not expecting any prior background. I mean, obviously, like, I'd say probably like 95% of people do geography A level, but like, you don't, it's not a requirement. So work experience related to geography is not a requirement either. Like, obviously, like, if you've done it, amazing, write about it. I'm sure you've learned some, like, really good transferable skills, but no, you don't have to at all.
I think it would be useful, and because obviously we keep saying how broad geography is, there are a lot of options that you could do, but I think equally as good are the readings, the going to lectures, all that sort of stuff, getting involved in projects. I don't think it's essential to do work experience at all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to highlight, that, I think work experience in a lot of cases is based on your background and your socioeconomic, experience and stuff. So, so don't worry about trying to get yourself some form of work experience, because like you said, Chloe, reading a book, watching a TED talk, or investing a bit of time into a journal or something like that is also just as invaluable as going and getting some work experience.
Even like Netflix documentaries, like there are so many about
definitely. Definitely, yeah. No, anything which you take information from, you interpret the information, you come up with your own thoughts, you come up, you develop some skills from it, it leads you to do something else. That's all invaluable, and that's all stuff you can put in your personal statement. So both of you, having already studied geography for a whole year now, what would you say are the most valuable skills to show in your personal statement? Chloe?
I think willingness to learn, just because, I mean, there's so much in the degree. Like, after this year, I've learned so much. So I think you definitely need to demonstrate that you are willing to learn. I think, like, to get that across is doing the supercurriculars, and putting yourself out there when you didn't have to. Like, it wasn't part of your college or your school. Like, you chose to do it. You chose to go and learn something. And then in doing that, you're demonstrating that you find your subject interesting. So I think definitely willingness to learn and finding it interesting are two very key things.
Yeah, I do think it is true. Like, especially with geography, the more you learn, the more you realise how much you don't know. I think that was a large shift from A level to degree level, is that at A level, geography is, like, especially human geography, like, it is really quite deep. You just can't be taught it properly at A level. So you have to just have a willingness to be able to just change your ideas of, like, what you originally thought and be flexible. I think that's what the tutors are looking for, really, is like a flexible mind, someone who's willing to take on new ideas and not get stuck on old ones. And also like especially in interviews, I think they're looking for someone who's able to get stuff wrong and then move on from it and like take on board tutors' comments. But that's not really personal statement. I say personal statement is just trying to really engage with the whole of the course, because you will have to do physical and human. So I really would try and talk about both and not just be like, I love this specific part of human geography and that's all I want to do, because then they're going to be like, oh, well, you're probably not suited to the course then, because you have to do all of it.
I think going back to the interview, so like in some of them, they give you like a resource or something. So in mine, like when he first asked me about it, I got it completely wrong. But then when he gave me like a few pointers, and then I managed to get it. And that's what they're looking for, really. Like, you can be wrong, but then it's just, can you learn from that when you've given new information or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, the interviews, I'd say, are designed to see how you would cope in a tutorial situation. So obviously don't like go to an interview and think, right, that is what tutorials are like. They are much more intense than normal tutorials. But I think being able to make mistakes and come from them and learn from them and change the way you think is something that they're really looking for. So don't worry about making mistakes in your interviews. Also, one thing I'd say is sometimes they may ask you questions related to your personal statement.
They
need to know your personal statement.
I've got some horror stories. I remember my second interview was running late, so I could hear the girl who was in the interview through the door.
Yeah.
And
actually.
And the tutor was because there's like this one like key physical book that we learned. It's called like Atmosphere, Water and the Environment or something. And anyway, she'd put that she'd read it all in her personal statement. And he was then, oh, so what happened in chapter 3 then? And she was like, oh, I actually haven't. I've only read the first chapter. And then I didn't know how the rest of the interview went, but she didn't end up getting in. But then when I went in, I had only written about one journal. And I went in the room and he was standing there with a stack of paper in front of him, and he had printed off the journal, and he was like, what's in this journal? And luckily, like before I went into the interview, like I reread over the journal, so I was able to tell him. But I think lots of the time people don't think that happens. Like the tutors don't actually look at your personal statement, but at least for geography, like they did, and they had printed out everything that we'd said we'd read, and they tested us on it. So that's why also it's quite good to just stick to one or two things, because then you can know them. I also think it does make it seem more impressive, even if you feel like, oh, I've only put like one thing on my personal statement, they're going to think I haven't read a lot. I think it's actually more impressive if you then can talk about stuff in your interview that you haven't put on your personal statement. It's like, wow, she's done so much, she couldn't possibly fit it all on that one piece of paper that was her personal statement, because then I could talk about these other books, because I had read more, I just didn't put them on my personal statement. So I think that actually looks more impressive when you can just talk about more than what you put on your personal statement.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good to have that element of surprise. It makes you look different. Yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree. I think, like you said, just having one or two things to focus on in your personal statement, because like you said, if you're going to be reading over things, skimming over things before you go for your interviews, you don't want a lot of stuff. And I think for people, especially for people who are affected by COVID at the moment, I think just reading a book or watching an online lecture, doing an online course, all these things are accessible without having to leave your home, and they're all things that you could, before the lecture, not before the lecture, before the interview, go over and remind yourself what it's all about. But yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky before my interview actually, because there was one sort of scientific question that they asked me, and before I went there, I practiced a question that was really, really similar. And so like I was sitting there thinking, oh, I can answer this question. So that was quite fortuitous. So I think we are nearly done, but I was hoping that you girlies could potentially give me like just any sort of general tips that you would give to prospective students wanting to apply for like geography, but also for Oxford in general. Sophie, do you want to start us off?
I would say if you're lucky enough to get an interview, try and I remember the best tip that I kind of told myself was just try, and I know it's so easier said than done, but try and enjoy it. Honestly, the less nervous you are, the better your interview is going to go, because you can think so much more clearly. Because in my head, before I went into my first interview, I had told myself, right, you're not going to get in. You're not going to get in. So now just enjoy this, and then just have this cool little, like, you're not going to experience it again. So just try and have this normal chat. And that really took the pressure off. It was like, oh, I've already not gotten in. And then you could just have a nice conversation with the tutor. And I think you do just become way more relaxed once that pressure is gone. So, and I would also say Oxford isn't for everyone. And if you don't get in, it does not mean that you're not clever at all, I would say. So if you get in, amazing. If you don't, honestly, amazing as well. It does not reflect on you or your intelligence. It's just a very unique environment. And I think only certain types of people can really thrive in it, because the worst thing you want is just to have a horrible time at uni. So I'd say whatever happens, it was meant to be, and enjoy where you end up.
I don't know if I should say this or not, but I think there's definitely a bit of luck involved.
Yeah.
Which is probably another thing to say, but I think, you know, there is a little bit there. I think with applying to Oxford or Cambridge, like, if you want to, then just go for it. Like, you're not going to lose out on anything. I think it's better to try than not to. Because even if that's not what, like, your parents did or people from your school have done, or like it's traditional, maybe you're the first one to apply from your school, that does not matter. I think always try for it, always go for it, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no matter what your teacher said, because 2 of my teachers said to not apply, and then I ended up getting in. So I think always apply, always apply.
And you have 5 choices on your UCAS, so I mean, Oxford or Cambridge is one, and then you've still got 4 other choices that are probably going to be really great unis. So I think always apply. Just if you feel like you want to, then just do it. You're not going to lose anything. And then for prospective students, like for geography, I mean, I love my degree. I think it's great. I think the work environment, it can be tough in a way, because it is quite a lot of work compared to other unis. So you get like maybe 1 or 2 essays a week. But also the social life is so good. And I've met so many amazing people here. So I think overall, like, it's hard work, but it's so rewarding as well. And I've had like the best year. It's been so fun.
Yeah. So I say, like, to summarize that, always apply, but
Yeah.
Oxford isn't the be all end all.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah.
And also, yeah, just relax. Like, if you do get an interview,
also, like, congratulate yourself on getting an interview. Not that many people get an achievement.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get an interview just shows how amazing you actually are. So
it shows that they think you're good enough to be there.
Definitely.
Yeah, but just don't stress over personal statements. They're not the be all and end all. And same with interviews. Just try not, like, it's so easy just to say it, but honestly, try not to stress. And I mean, both my interviews ended up going so quick, and I was like, I came out of them and I was like, whoa, that was actually interesting. Like, I kind of enjoyed that in a weird way. So I think just try not to stress, because you either get in or you don't. Like, it literally doesn't matter. There's so many good unis here. So
yeah, I agree totally. And it's good to make it clear that no matter where you end up, you're going to love your uni experience no matter what.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all we have time for today. So we've learned some really, really interesting stuff about writing a personal statement for geography. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, and for basically joining us at Oxford from the Inside. Also, thank you to our followers for listening to this podcast or watching this video. And also remember to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at Oxford from the Inside, no spaces. And check out our Facebook page for regular updates on our new content. So to access all our other stuff, just type in Oxford from the Inside on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, literally you name it, it's there. So anyway, I hope you all stay safe and well, and until next time, bye.
Bye.